Dr. Jenelle Kim, I can't even begin to express how happy I am to have you with us on the summits today. You were one of those people who, to be perfectly honest, I'd never heard of you before, but after I found out about you, I had wished I've known you for years and years and years. And because your teaching and the information that you give online and all the stuff that you stand for could not be described otherwise than actually creating the most beautiful life that people can imagine. So thank you so very, very much for joining us and for allowing us to share you with all the viewers that we have on the summit. Thank you so much.
What a beautiful introduction. Thank you, Angelo. I'm so very happy and honored to be here and to be
Cool.
part of the beautiful summit that you've created.
You people like you have made it beautiful. Everybody on the summit so far are amazing people. And I call the summit Meditation, Miracles, and Manifestation. And literally everything that's happened on the summit so far has been from manifestation. I needed somebody that's in your space. And I said, I want somebody that's really going to have an impact, really going to have amazing things to teach. And then you came around and I was like, dude, thank you, universe.
Angelo. Understood, though. Yes, I do love that. You're the same.
Cool. Okay, so like I said, like myself, before I got to know you, I didn't know anything about you, and I'm so grateful now that I've had the opportunity to do so. There are some folks who still don't know who Dr. Jenelle Kim is. So if you don't mind, just a little bit of a background about yourself. I've given an introduction about your credentials, etc., but just about why you do what you do. What is your passion in doing it?
I love that you entered into the question or finished the question with that, because that's the best way. So why what I do? I'll stick to that, right? And so, as you said, you've given kind of my background, but truly in my heart, why I do what I do is because I truly wish to leave something behind in this world, positive and good. And I believe that it's one thing to feel it, think it, which is so powerful, but then to follow through with action, which is not always so easy, but has to be done. And exactly that's my mission. Ultimately, I come from a long lineage of doctors, herbologists, philosophers, if you will, and their understanding, their wisdom has been passed down for centuries from generation to generation. And I happen to be part of that lineage, right? And so I know when I was young, people used to say, Jenelle, you put the world on your shoulders. And my answer would be, yes, that's because I feel like the world is on my shoulders. Because when you have ancestors who have dedicated their heart and mind, their whole being into understanding the human mind and body, to understanding medicine, to understanding the way that the universe works, and puts their heart into passing that down for others, that is exactly what I find, basically my responsibility at this point. So that is kind of in a nutshell, deeply who I am and what I wish to do. I wish to share all that has been handed down for centuries so that we can use it today to balance with our life.
And you do it so beautifully. And the way you described it just now, just for most people will seem like a really huge burden or a really huge responsibility to do, like, Am I worthy? Am I able to do this? Am I able to continue in the same vein and tradition that I'm now part of? That's part of my lineage. And I watched the video that you did. I think it was on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I loved it because it really, really hit home. It really, really touched my heart. And when now that I've spoken to you, I realized that it wasn't lip service at all. It was the real deal. It's things you believe. And the video that I watched was about honor. Okay, yes. The meaning of honor. Okay, which is really good. So if you don't mind, just giving us a bit like a little bit of summary of what is honor and how does that play a role in dictating everything that we do.
Absolutely. So I love to kind of put two things together. It's connectedness and seeking honor, seeking the face of honor, right? And so what that means is in this life, there's so much that happens all of the time, and it's so important to, number one, which is one of the first things I talk about, which maybe we'll talk about later, but you have to know yourself. You have to be in touch with yourself. And then when you're able to kind of find habits to constantly keep yourself in touch, it's so important to be able to connect with everything around you. Of course, with the universe, nature around us. The beautiful thing is it doesn't matter what our beliefs, what our gender, what our ethnicity, just to connect as a human being with the universe around us. And seeking the face of honor basically is along those lines. And to me, it's an understanding of respect for those around us, for the universe around us. And by doing so, we're able to not be influenced in an incorrect way by all of the things that happen to us in life. That's so very important. And to not change who we are as a human being, right? So regardless of sometimes the way that we react to different situations, it's important maybe to stop that reaction so much and to really respond in such a way where we have a face of honor, where no matter what comes in our way, no matter what comes in front of us, we don't change who we are necessarily. And we're able to just stay in a very grounded place. As my mentor taught me, the mountain, he always spoke in terms of nature. And he said, when it's morning, the mountain has a light shine upon it. When it's evening, the mountain becomes dark. When it's wet, the mountain can become muddy. But the difference is that mountain never loses its face. No matter what, it's always a mountain. And that mountain has the face of honor. And so that's the way I love to describe that.
And that's absolutely beautiful because, from my culture, from the Greek culture as well, honor is a really, really big thing. Honor, responsibility,
Yes.
Being respect are huge, huge, huge elements in my culture. But
Yes.
in the travels that I've had, I've seen that as time progresses and as the influences increase, this beautiful traditional inherent element of who we are seems to be
Yes.
fading in some way, or seems to be getting tainted. So I'm
Yeah.
really grateful that someone like you is going out and
Mhm.
advocating for, let's get back to that. Let's get back to being
Yes.
okay. So I did a video a while ago that was called about we deserve respect. Okay, I deserve respect, or you deserve respect. And the
Yes.
whole point of the video was, do we really deserve respect? Are we conducting ourselves in a way that is respectful or
Yes.
respectable? And it really
Yes.
applies to honor as well. So I really thank you so much for sharing that. That's
Yes, and I appreciate that you also mentioned Angelo, because that is definitely something that I speak of often. That it is, of course, awareness, but it's also accountability and responsibility
yeah,
to do exactly what you just said. So I'm grateful that you mentioned that.
it is. It's true. Thank you. I'm getting all this validation from you. I'm really grateful for that too. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to dive right into it because the reason why we invite you onto the summit
Yes.
was to speak about this beautiful concept. Okay, tapping into your Korean heritage of
Yes.
Myeongsan. Okay,
Yes.
Myeongsan, and
Yes.
a lot of what you're doing at the moment revolves around that. I mean, your book, your teaching, your practice, your businesses, everything is incorporating the elements and the philosophy behind Myeongsan. So I'm going to sit
Yes.
back and enjoy a little bit of you telling us about what is Myeongsan. Okay.
Absolutely. So before I begin, I have to note, otherwise my mother would be upset. So my father is Korean. My mother is American. Even today, that's not so common. It sounds crazy, and I'm happy to say it. It's not so common, especially my father was a very respected and wonderful human being. Okay. And so why I say that is because although I very deeply am rooted in heritage of Korea, of East Asia, I feel like it resonates and aligns very accurately with me. I would be incorrect in not mentioning that I think part of what I'm about and what I wish to share is truly the East and West, the old and the modern or new. And my mother would definitely want me to say this as well, because I am also, from the American, European type of heritage. So I have to at least acknowledge that. And I actually think that's a beautiful part of it all, because I'm able to kind of mix all of the best, the diversity, as I know we have mentioned together in this understanding. And that is truly what Myeongsan is about. So yes, it really is rooted in East Asian philosophies and living per se, but it is applicable. And so Myeongsan actually translates, it's a Korean word that translates as meditation. Okay. And we call it the Korean art of mindful connection, right? In fact, that will be the book's name. Like I said, it's not confirmed, but ultimately, that is ultimately what my book will be called. And so Myeongsang, I like to think of it, I first like to define what is mindful. Oftentimes one of my favorite things to do is all these things that we say that sound so great and we hear people repeat in outside world. Sometimes it's important even just to take a moment to think, what am I actually saying? What does it actually mean? And this word mindful is one that we hear so often, and it's one of my favorite words. In fact, it will be in the title of my book. But what does it actually mean, right? And so when we go to define it, I like to think of it so we're all on the same page as, and I came up with a little acronym called APP, which is something we all know about, apps, right? But this is a different kind of an app, okay? It's awareness. So it's a sense of awareness of yourself. So mindfulness to me starts with being aware of yourself without judgment, right? Being very in tune and in touch with who you are first, because that's important to be able to relate to anything. And second to that would be purpose, doing things with purpose. When you go to say something, when you go to do something, when you think through something, what is the purpose behind what you're doing? It's a moment to stop and really check in with yourself. Okay. And then finally, the third part of mindfulness, what it means to myself, is being really present. It wasn't until, later on, a little later in my life, which doesn't really matter of age, but experience, did I understand really the importance of being present. And I think that especially now, the way that the world is in the moment, this is so vital, because life can be very challenging and overwhelming sometimes. No matter how we live our life, sometimes we can't avoid anything. And when you're present, you're able to take each moment, even if all you have is a couple of seconds, but to be present in what we need to do at that moment, one foot in front of the other, right? And so ultimately, that is what I love to call mindfulness and connection. So mindful connection. Connection is, once we have that and we are mindful of who we are, we're able to connect to the universe around us and other people around us. And that ultimately is life. I don't know how else to call life, And so as I really love to say, this understanding of Myeongsan to me and everything I just described really can come down to living meditation. And what I mean by that is it's meditation that happens every moment, while I'm sitting here with you, while I'm sleeping, when I'm with my children, when I'm at work. It's meditation that never stops. And so that's why I love to call it living meditation.
That's actually a beautiful term, to be honest, because, oftentimes you're like, okay, I'm going to go and meditate now. I'm going to.
Right.
Whereas, the whole philosophy behind this is like, you can be in a state of meditation all the time. That
Yes.
Based on what you said earlier about the awareness, purpose, and being present in the moment. I mean, these are doable. I'm guessing with a lot of practice.
Yes. Yes.
It takes some practice.
But you're literally stating what living meditation is all about, And as I started to mention before, in the world where things can be so overwhelming and so much detail, there's positive about having so much information, and sometimes there's the negative aspect, or maybe not negative, but what can be challenging sometimes is it can be overwhelming. And so my favorite thing to do, as I briefly mentioned before, is to think of these words, think of these actions, and really simplify them, because to me, the way I was raised, my mentors taught me really to look at the principle or the foundation of everything. And then from there, you can build upon it. And so, yes, as you just said, it really comes down to there's a great benefit to meditating, as far as sitting down in a place, having 10 minutes even, or hours or days of meditation. But what a beautiful thing to be able to carry that with us throughout our day. Not where we're not tuned in or present. We're very present. We have lots to do, but to always kind of carry this inner practice of creating good habits.
I love that. I love that. And I'm guessing the question on everybody's minds right now, because it's on mine. I'm just assuming everybody's gonna have the question. It's like, so how do I learn that? So how do I learn to do that? What is the first step? What are the first 2 or 3 steps to get me on that path or create that momentum to conditioning myself to be that way? What would you suggest?
Absolutely. I think it all starts first, as I said, with yourself, right? You have to start with yourself. That does not mean it's all about yourself. No, I hear that sometimes. I'm like, how can you live in this life and just constantly think of only the self? It's very important. Our health, for example, we have to be very aware, because without our health and without us, we can't do anything, right? But it has to start with you. You have to realize as a human being that you have the power. You have the power to make any choice in this life. And certainly coming from Tao philosophy, because a lot of this has to do with the Tao. To me, it's like Tao philosophy combined with mindfulness and making it for today, right? But when you think of the Tao, it starts with, the ultimate fundamental, and it breaks into yin and yang. And this can be a whole segment in and of itself, so I won't go too deep. But what I mean by that is there are always like kind of the 2 opposing forces. And there's a lot that goes on in between that, like the yin yang symbol, it's always changing. But ultimately, there's, let's say, good and bad choices. And, I know when I was growing up, this is definitely a part of how my parents raised me. And this is a part of the way I even raise my children, starting at 3, and that is, there's certain things that you're going to come across in this life, and you have to make the choice. Ultimately, this whole life is up to you. You have the power to change your life, to make choices that are good or bad. And like I said, the Tao is all about flow and change, but ultimately it can really be broken down to that. When you're at any kind of crossroad, no matter how big or how small, it's time to make that choice. And when you go to make that choice, now how do we go about that? And that is basically the first step, looking at yourself, knowing that you hold the power, because that also has a lot of, as we talked about in the very beginning about honor, it holds a lot of accountability. You have responsibility. You cannot just blame others or blame other things. And sometimes it can be an uncomfortable place to sit. And it's not like you have to share it with the whole world. But inside, if you remember that, the decisions that you make, the way you respond, not react to others, the way that you go about your relationships with other people, it just starts to come from a different place. And that's how you start to make little habits, you know? For example, I like to think of when we were first born, we didn't know how to walk, right? And so we had to learn how to walk. We had to sit there and whatever that looks like. And now we wake up in the morning and we get out of bed and we go. We don't have to think, okay, now I have to get out of bed and do this, do that, right? And so to me, it really is a simplified way of putting it, but it's no different. It's creating habits for ourselves.
I read one of your articles that you wrote for a publication. I found it absolutely fascinating, where you're talking about the eight keys. Okay, we'll talk about the eight keys in a moment. But a little bit after that, you gave an example of a definition, or rather a philosophy that you shared, and I was like, that's fascinating. That's really cool. I want to look into this. Where you said we need to be like bamboo. Okay, and I think that fits into the previous thing. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's difficult, challenges come, etc. So a little bit about that, how, the philosophy about we need to be like bamboo. What do you mean by that?
Yes, absolutely. It's one of my favorite visuals. And I do that often. I'll make different visuals or sayings to myself that in a second I can pull it up in any kind of given moment. And be like bamboo is one of my ultimate favorites. And I'll say, what, right? A lot of times in this life, and I'll even speak for myself in my early 20s, I started, I started working probably when I was born, but, I suppose people have told me I was pretty young in the, career path to do different things. And so I think it's a good example, a good place to start, that when I was young, and oftentimes in a room is filled with, corporate people who have been around for so long, and I so deeply wanted to share, whether it be the formulations, whether it be the philosophy, it was very important to me. And so I found that there are times where I felt I can be a very strong personality, right? But what I found was, and certainly a principle that I've been taught by my mentors, is when you are stiff as a board, right? So you think you're so hard. And in this life, we feel sometimes like we have to be tough. That word tough is such a funny one. We have to be tough and not even strong, right? We have to be tough when certain things come across us and we have to fight. We have to defend ourselves. And that often is where we'll go. It's the fight or flight, right? When we're in a challenging situation or we want to get a point across. But the funny thing is that when you're stiff as a board, that board is, you're right, you can hurt yourself against it. It's strong. But you know what the funny thing is? You hit it a bit too hard, or you hit it at exactly a certain spot, just like you see in those karate demonstrations, right? And it breaks. That's it. It breaks because you don't have that flexibility, right? That's the yin and the yang as well, right? A whole other, again, I keep wanting to go there. So maybe another time we'll talk about that. But it's the balance between flexibility and strength. So thinking of that stiff board, we think it's so strong, but how easily it can break at just the right moment. Bamboo is different. Bamboo, first of all, has a deep root, right? That's one of the things we all know. That's why bamboo, you have to be careful actually, because it can ruin your landscaping, or sometimes you want to put it there because it holds the ground together. But bamboo has deep roots that don't easily come out. And when a big storm comes, a big challenge in life comes, it doesn't just break. It doesn't fall over, right? It has such flexibility that it can go all the way to the ground if big winds come. And as soon as that wind or that storm passes, it bounces right back and can keep handling and balancing with life. And that's why I love that, the visual of be like bamboo. It's basically to always stay rooted. Never forget that. It gives a sense of calm and strength that can sometimes be stronger than even fighting, right? And that's because it has that flexibility. And that's something I think is really beautiful and certainly can help so much during times of challenge, to know that flexibility and sometimes being quiet is much stronger and more powerful at the right moment than being hard, fighting, trying to, prove a point per se. So that's be like bamboo.
I absolutely love that, and you're right. Almost every single point you're mentioning so far, we can spend the whole interview on every single one.
I know.
Yin and yang, bamboo. I'm sure we can explore that for the next 2 hours at least, with all the
at least probably
analogies.
Like 2 months. Yes. I don't know if I want to stay here for 2 months right now. Maybe they do.
But I have to bring it back again, and I hope I've intrigued enough people to be interested enough. You've intrigued enough people, not me, obviously I didn't do anything, to start following you and following your teachings on social media, because you talk about all the stuff there anyway, but in a lot more detail and going into specifics, which is absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to bring it back. Sorry to everybody who's watching. We're not going to continue in that vein. We're going to bring it back to living meditation, because that's that was one of the beautiful things that I wanted to speak to you about. And you said there are eight keys to living meditation.
Yes, there's 8 living meditation.
Okay. The first one you said before is to know yourself. It's to do about you. Yes. So we know number 1 we've done. If you don't mind, we continue with number 2 all the way to 8. A bit of a summary, because I'm sure you're definitely going to be talking about this in your book as well. So there will be a lot more detail there.
Right. Absolutely. So number 2 is making correct choices in our daily life. Right. And so that's so important. The main point, it comes down to true, right, and correct. And yes, each one of these could be a whole segment. And so we will go through here. But making correct choices is so important in our life. Once we have the first key, which is knowing ourselves, the second key is, now that we're aware of ourselves, looking at each situation that comes across us and knowing that there is a right that leads to a correct choice, meaning you have to look at the whole situation in order to come up with a correct choice that is not just good for you, that is not just good even for the 2 people who may be involved, but the good of everyone. And that's very important. Yes. And then the third key is I actually like to, I'll just get to the point. It's called dochi. Dochi is another Korean phrase or word, and it basically means being drunk on your own thoughts. Okay. And it's a really funny thing, because there's no such thing that I have found necessarily in, let's say, the English language. Right. And so when you're drunk on your own thoughts, it can be a really dangerous thing. In fact, I have found, and I believe, that being in a place of dochi, or being a dochi human being at any given moment in time, is dangerous, because it's you zoom in too much. You have tunnel vision. It's that you have a certain thought, you have a certain feeling, maybe sometimes people call it judgments, whatever the word might be, but ultimately it zooms in and you don't see a greater perspective. And that's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. And so it's just going over, dochi is a key that goes over that understanding, so that we can be aware of when we may be presenting habits of being dochi. So do not be drunk on your own thoughts. Be open to hearing, to seeing the whole situation around yourself, gaining perspective. And ultimately, one of the most important things, I think, is putting yourself into other people's shoes. Because when you're able to do that, you have a certain sense of compassion, an appreciation for others. And, honestly, you have a lot less turmoil and anxiety inside, because it just gives you a chance to take yourself out of yourself and see why someone might be doing what they're doing, even if it looks horrific or it doesn't make any sense to you, and that's a really important thing to do that can really help to build your life. And then the fourth key is becoming a legacy of goodness. Now, again, you can hear each of these keys, why I could spend.
Yes, it's a subject in and of itself. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, becoming a legacy of goodness. I often think to myself, and one of my favorite things, if I'm speaking or not, sometimes the way I love to start is by having a moment, honestly, in my own self, where I remember this. One day, maybe no one will remember my face. One day, maybe no one will remember my name. But the most important thing, the purpose behind why I feel that I'm here, is to leave something good behind on this earth, in this world, in this universe, to plant good seeds, as my mentor would say. And I love that. So when it comes to parenting, when it comes to being a daughter, when it comes to being a wife, a sister, running our business, that's how I think of things. When I go about anything in this life, I think it's so important. It just gives you a certain kind of a connection. What is my purpose here? What am I doing that's going to leave some kind of legacy and good, so that one day when I'm not here, I will have made some kind of a mark in this universe. And that's basically what that key goes over. And so, as you can see, as we go through these keys, they're just things that you can kind of constantly keep in mind, and you don't have to go through them as 1, 2, 3, 4. I find that that's helpful for us, and kind of going through it and explaining. But these are the types of things you start to teach yourself. This is the meditation that you go about your every day, right? And so key 5, we already went over, so I don't even have to go over it too much, but key 5 is that connectedness and that honor, right? So not reacting so much to your surroundings, responding properly, and having respect in such a way, and accountability and responsibility, as you said, Angela, so beautifully, so that you never change from being the good human being that you are. You always keep that face of honor, no matter who you're around, and you have that respect for others as well. Beautiful. And then number 6, thank you. Key 6, Angelo, is a really important one. It's one of my favorites. In fact, I'll be doing a video tomorrow on it and putting it on social media. And my favorite thing is I'm trying to make these so quick, right? Because that's what we have to do. All right, okay, Jenelle, 30 seconds. Like, okay, I don't know, but so I'm getting that down. But key 6 is so important because it's called changing your reality for the better. And what that means, it all kind of connects. You can see that certain themes run throughout all the keys.
Yeah.
But this means you hold the power. You have the choice at the end of the day, as we talked about a little bit earlier. You're never locked into a situation. I do believe that's where a lot of feelings of stress, anxiety, overwhelming, depression, all of those imbalances that so many of us can walk through in this life, it can come from this, where you feel like you lose control. And so it's so important to remember that you hold the power to change your reality. Of course, there are some situations in your life that are much more challenging than others. Of course, there are some people who are walking through life in a much more challenging way than others. But no matter what situation, no matter who we are, at the end of the day, it is our choice on how we want our life to go. And when you start making those steps, that's where you can start to see your life really unfold. For those who like the word destiny, it could mean our destiny, manifesting our destiny, following our destiny. But really, it's just life. That's how we can have life unfold in a way that we wish to. And ultimately, everything comes from inside of us. It is our choice. And so you can't put the blame on others or on other things, right? And then key 7, we also kind of covered, and that's a little bit, but it's being a vessel of wisdom, right? And so I very much feel that way. Before I step on stage, no matter where I speak around the world, before I have an important anything to talk about, one of my favorite things to do is to take a moment, because of course, I always say, of course we feel nervous, right? If you didn't feel nervous sometimes, it means you don't care.
Yes.
So I say that to my son, when my son Vince, if you're going to school and you're taking a test and you're nervous, it's okay. Right? Now you have to be able to calm yourself and act accordingly, but ultimately it's because you care, right? But I always think to myself, you know what? It's not about me. And I love that. It really helps me in my life, no matter what I do, because I am just a vessel, right? I'm a vessel that I wish to carry these principles that my ancestors have taught me down my lineage, but ultimately have existed for who knows how long, right? That's the Tao. Where did it all begin? It's the universe. It's Qi, a whole other topic, right? But not only am I a vessel, my wish is to be a vessel of wisdom, right? So it's very Confucian, if you will. Confucius talks about knowledge and wisdom, right? And so knowledge, they're both very important in this life. Knowledge is what we learn in books. It's how we educate ourselves. It's very important, but wisdom is our experience, right? And so it's a funny thing. It certainly comes with age, that is for sure. But it also doesn't necessarily mean that, someone who's 80 has more wisdom than someone who's 20 because of the experiences, what you absorb from them. That is what is so important. But to always be open and continuously want to learn and be open doesn't mean you hear everything or are influenced by everything. But if you're able to do that, that's how you gain wisdom. And by gaining that wisdom, you become a vessel unto others. And that's how you take all the things that you've learned and you're able to share them with others. And that is key, right? It goes back to all the other keys we just talked about. And finally, the 8th key is we've talked so much about how to ultimately purify ourselves. That's one way I like to call it, create good habits. And when we start to do that, how do we work with our surroundings? Because that is from the beginning, that was the first key. And here we end 8, infinity, with work in harmony with our surroundings, which is very key because we can't avoid anything in this life. We have to balance with it. And by using these other keys, by using herbal formulations in our life, supplementing our body, feeding ourselves properly, it's pretty much like your lifestyle, all the things that you do to make sure that you have harmony within yourself, good health, balance, and that you're able to have that with your surroundings as well. And those are the 8 keys.
I know. Okay, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I've read the 8 keys. I've read your articles written on the 8 keys. I've seen some of your videos that you do when you specifically talk about the 8 keys, but not until you literally explain them now the way you just did. I made some personal connections in my mind to this kind of stuff, and the wisdom of it just like literally just exploded, just exploded in my brain. And I love the way it's put. And what I also realized is that because what we tend to do when we learn something, and particularly something that's we've maybe not heard of before, okay, we think, oh, this is something new, it's something I've got to get used to, I've got to change. Essentially, what you've been talking about are values that we should be personifying in our lives anyway, that we know of. Things like responsibility, accountability, empathy.
Yes.
I love it. The
Yes.
empathy, humility, things, and all of these elements, and it's been put into this absolutely beautiful package that expounds them in such a way that makes them very, very practical and doable. So it's not this, like you spoke about the mountain earlier. It's not this mountain that you have to climb.
Right. That is my ultimate wish, Angela. So I'm so happy that it's applicable, because to me, I think that's part of my purpose, my mission in this life is taking these things, these philosophies, and certainly I practice them every day. That is the wisdom. I don't think there's ever going to be a time where I say, Angelo, it's happened. I've got them all. It just doesn't work that way, right? That why is this person that knows that they always have something to live and to learn? And so I love that you said that, but my wish is to make them practical and make them understood. And so I'm so happy that came across in that way.
Absolutely, in so many different ways, because you're coming from this. I'm if you don't mind, I'm just going to tell you the impression I have of you. Okay, the impression I have of you, which makes you a beautiful, beautiful teacher. Is you're somebody who's ridiculously intelligent and experienced, okay, but not intimidating. Okay, which to me means the world. It's somebody who you have all this knowledge, and when you spoke about the 8 keys, when you got to the one about being a vessel of wisdom, that was you. That was you to a T. Okay, you have all this wisdom, all this knowledge that you wish to impart, but you don't make anybody feel like, don't you know this already, or you're so dumb you don't get this kind of thing. You're not intimidating in any way whatsoever, but it's just so enriching at the same time. But having said that, it's not just the knowledge; you also have the example of what you're teaching, which is beautiful. And I love that while we've been talking the whole time, you've been giving these principles and these philosophies. Every so often, you sneak in a little something in there, and I'll tell you what it is. And you sneak in.
Okay, I can't wait.
Sometimes life gets hard. Sometimes things get difficult. Sometimes we have things that challenge us. So it's not this delusion of once you're here, you're dreaming on cloud 9. It's like, real life happens. Things happen. This is how you're going to deal with it. So I love that you sneak that in there to be like, let's be real about it. Okay? Yes, there's beautiful concepts, but let's be real. So earlier on, we spoke about this, and you agreed to give us kind of like a bit of a demonstration or an experience or an exercise of how we can do this. So if you don't mind, I'm going to let you do that right now. If that's cool, and I can't wait to experience it. I'm really excited.
So there's quite a few, and like I said, I really am doing my very best, and I will continue to do even better, I hope, through social media, passing some things that I know can be really quick and you can do anywhere, right? Because that really matters. Like I said, I'm a mother of 2 young boys. I work constantly. I run a couple businesses. I'm married. I have my family. And so what do we do? Okay. And so, when you asked me this, when we first got on, I thought, which one would I want to share? And you know what? There's a lot of different breathing exercises out there. And this is very simple, but it's very effective. Okay. Wow. And like I said, on Instagram, I'll share more, but this one I love. And it goes along with the yin and yang, right, that I talked about before. So it's a certain hand position that really you could do anywhere. And first you kind of link your fingers, okay? And then you kind of place them together. It's almost like a brain.
I like you don't this. This is cool.
It's mostly just this, right? And then that's how you hold it. I'm going to stand up for a second. That's how you hold it on your lap. And what this represents is the balance. It represents balance and unity, which is certainly we all need right now, right? On some level. And you place that in your lap. And so you can even sit that way in the middle of a business meeting. Don't think I don't do this sometimes. Or if someone's really making you feel tense or you don't like a situation you're in, you can kind of do this. It kind of rebalances your body in such a way. One of my favorite ways to deep breathe or meditate, certainly you can sit, cross-legged. There's so many different ways. But I actually really love to sit in a chair where my feet are firm against the ground, right? So at a 90-degree angle. Unfortunately, with Zoom, we can't do that so much. And you put it very comfortably in your lap, your hand position, and you sit up straight, but then I like to just kind of relax into it. So it's important that your spine is straight, okay? And so one thing you can do it with your eyes closed. So if you do have a couple minutes to do so, you can do it with your eyes closed or with your eyes open. And so the way I love to do it is you breathe in through your nose, deep breath, and it goes all the way up the midline to the top of your head. There's a very important acupoint at the very top of your head, right? And then it travels all the way, your breath travels all the way down your spine. And then picture it entering into your stomach. almost like a tidal wave, if you will. That's what I visualize sometimes. And that's your breath. So you breathe into your stomach, as you hear a lot, right? Through your nose, as I just instructed. As you breathe out, it comes up the front of your body, the midline of the front of your body, out your mouth. And it creates almost a circle in front of you, if you will. And it goes right back into your nose. And you continue that. And the beautiful thing is you really relax and you calm. Oftentimes I love to hear my breath. It can be very relaxing. And it gives you something to focus on. So as you're breathing in, I don't know if you can hear through Zoom, but you can kind of hear your breath. And as you go out, and you can travel with your breath, and you can make that circle bigger and bigger. So pretty soon you're almost in a circle of your breath, visualizing it. And that's just a really beautiful way of kind of calming yourself in any given situation. And it is so true when you find yourself in kind of a tense situation of any kind, to take even 3 breaths makes such a big difference. It brings oxygen to our brain. It balances our meridians. It does Western, Eastern. It doesn't matter how you look at it. It just rebalances the body. And so that's one that I really love to do. Another thing that I really teach that I think it's really important, Angelo, to share, because I don't know if we hear this all the time, is for any meditation that we do, I'm a firm believer, not any, I shouldn't say that, but certainly the practices, traditional, whether it's Qigong, Tai Chi, certain traditional type of martial arts, yoga, it's really important to do some kind of physical movement, even for a couple of minutes before you sit down to deep breathe. And that's not something I don't think everybody knows.
Never heard that.
Yes, I know, right? And so it's not something, right, that is talked about very often. Now, you'll see it in yoga, which a lot of people practice, in martial arts, which a lot of people practice. They kind of do it and people might not even notice. You do a kind of a physical activity and then you can close with some kind of breath work, or of course it's during the activity as well. But that can be really important because it gets everything functioning and flowing properly, and it pretty much puts you in your body. You become present, right? Just like we talked about. So that's an important thing too before any breath work. I say even 3 minutes of some kind of, whether it be stretching, whether it be a Qigong movement, a yoga movement, whatever it might be, just to get yourself in your body, present, and then sit down into your breath work. It can be a lot more effective, if you will.
That was pretty cool, to be honest with you. That was I'm still doing that. I'm still doing that because it's like it's so comfortable. It like just feels so like secure and safe and peaceful at the same time. I don't. It's not something we usually do. I've really had to separate a little bit. And, and the visualization of this, going in the circle, coming out, going another circle, it reminds me of the the infinity symbol.
Yes, that's exactly right, Angelo. That's
is
exactly right. Yes. I didn't want to make it too complicated, but that is certainly, it just becomes this whole very deep, practice of breath. And there's many things that you can start to incorporate into it, but that's a really nice foundation, I think.
I think that was very beautiful. Thank you so very, very much for that. That was for the sharing. And I really appreciate the fact that everything that you're sharing is like, okay, so this is what I do, okay, not like this is what you should do.
Yes, you have to do it together. We're all in this together.
I do. I absolutely love that. So I would be remiss to do this interview and not speak about your business. Again, not speak about your business. At this stage, usually we will promote a product of some kind or some kind of continuation or a process that the folks who are watching can get engaged in. And continue their learning and their interest, whichever. But we already said, don't worry, I'm going to put all the links below to all of your social media and your website, and where you can link and get subscribe onto the Dr. Jenelle's mailing list, where you'll be kept updated with, for example, the book and new things that are coming out, courses that are coming out. But that's just follow her there. That's all you need to do. That's it for this session. But I do want to speak about your business because it was fascinating. It was fascinating. You're actually the foundation behind a lot of brands and situations that we use every single day, and don't even realize that you're the person that's propping that up. You're the foundation behind that. So a little bit about JBK. Labs. Say JBK Wellness Labs. Sorry.
So a large part of what I do is I'm a doctor of Eastern medicine, of Chinese medicine, traditional Oriental medicine, which I'm sure you shared in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so basically the path that I have chosen in this life is to take the herbal formulas that have been passed down in my lineage and share them with as many people as possible. And so what that has kind of led to is that we have a lab, my husband and I, but ultimately it goes with my background, and that is JBK Wellness Labs. And we contract manufacture products, which means people come to us to make formulations and products for them, ranging from dietary supplements, skincare, hair care, body care, nutraceuticals, pet products, whatever that might be, because I have such a treasure of formulations, and everything is rooted in that. But yes, people come to our lab and we manufacture products. And ultimately, we have the luxury, if you will, of being very picky about who we work with. I'm grateful for that. People come to us because we've made a very good reputation for ourselves in the industry of natural products, luxury products. In fact, I was one of the first in the whole natural products industry, right, to be creating herbal natural products. And so many people told me, "Oh, Jenelle, no one's going to want to hear about Asian products." Okay. 20 years ago. Now K-beauty is like one of the largest, and I thought, okay, thank you. And there you go. I say thank you and I keep moving. But ultimately, everything's kind of rooted in understanding of herbal medicine, which doesn't mean it has to be herbs necessarily, but different plant or botanical medicine. So many people come to us with very important key ingredients from around the world, but also really important, and what I speak on a lot is synergy of ingredients, so making proper formulas. So that's where people come to us. And yes, there's brands in all different high-end spas, retailers, natural marketplaces. And there is actually another brand that I, for the first time in a long time, am behind, actually, or in front of, I should say. I'm usually behind the scenes. And it is called Good Essentials. And so this company that I started with a very close friend of mine. And we ultimately, it started with during this whole pandemic, which, I don't necessarily want to go there per se. I think we covered it in another beautiful way. And it has different things like that basically just make life that much easier. And so that's a new company that I'm kind of working on in addition to JBK Wellness Labs that should be pretty interesting. So.
Jenelle, you blow my mind every single time I speak to you. You really literally do, because you have such tremendous accomplishments and you're so humble about it. It's like, we have the privilege of working behind some really good brands and really good companies. And you didn't name drop, not one person. You didn't name drop. And if you did, people will realize that it's like, oh my God, you're the person who works with these people. So I'm going to leave that as a mystery. You can check it up. You can do a bit of research and find out who JBK Labs is behind. Okay. And you'll be really, really shocked. And pleasantly surprised in many ways. But thank you very much for the example of humility that you have, and so it becomes very obvious as to how you command respect and honor by your example and who you are. So I'm inspired. I'm definitely inspired. I'm inspired to be a bit more aware of how I act and or react to certain things, about how I conduct myself and how I speak. Because you're a beautiful example. You're a beautiful example of the stuff that you teach, and how I think we should strive to not necessarily emulate, but to follow suit. Let's put it that way. As such, we can keep speaking for hours and hours and hours. What I'm gonna say about JBK Labs though is JBK Wellness Labs. I don't want to.
Same difference.
it's a brand. I don't want to misrepresent. JBK Wellness Labs is on your channel, on your. I've predominantly spent time on your Instagram channel, so I'm sure that the other channels also have similar content. You speak about the herbs that you're using and the combinations and what they do and what not, and what their effects are. And it's this beautiful combination of Eastern medicine practices and Western medicine practices as well. That has a beautiful balance, to be honest with you. It's a beautiful balance. None is taken in extremes. None is preferred over the other. And you have created a product that is making such a huge difference, but not just necessarily cosmetically, but internally as well, because of the aromatherapies and the healing properties and things like that. So I just wanted to mention that, because I think it's a vital part of what you do, and I would highly recommend people check it out as such.
Thank you so much, Angela. That means a lot. So.
I mean, I've learned so much. I'm serious. I researched all the guests on the summit quite extensively. But I've learned so many things that were very different from you, so I'm grateful for that opportunity. As you said, we can speak for hours and hours and hours, and we don't have the time anymore. But what we are going to do is later on in the year we have summits on conscious parenting. We have summits on fitness, health, and wellness. and also mental health. Okay,
Yes.
mental wellness as well. So most definitely there will be a lot of scope for us to
Yes.
reconnect and share some more very specific things in that space. So allow me please to extend an invitation to you to one of those summits, or one or more of those summits as of now, so that I don't have to say goodbye to you, but I can say until next time.
I like that very much. I would be honored and grateful. So thank you so much for having me, Angela. It really has been a wonderful moment in time.
Thank you so
And
much, Dr.
until
Jenelle. And we will speak soon again. Bye-bye.